Welcome to Business Over a Brew, the show where we talk business with some of the Riverbend's most interesting and influential business people, all while enjoying a nice brew at the Great Rivers Tap and Grill inside the Best Western Premier Hotel in Alton. In this episode, we'll talk with Alton Main Street Executive Director Sara McGibany. She'll tell us about the road that led to her becoming Executive Director of Alton Main Street and why local business is so vital to the Riverbend community. It's the Business Over a Brew podcast from the Great Rivers Tap and Grill in Alton. Welcome to Business Over a Brew. I'm your host, Nick Darr. Pleased to be joined in this episode by Sara McGibany. Sara, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the invite.
No problem. Well, just start here. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what do you do?
Well, my name's Sara McGibany. I'm the Executive Director of Alton Main Street. We are a group that is mainly volunteers, and we really just work to promote and improve downtown Alton. We do that through all kinds of social events, economic vitality type of projects, and also beautification efforts. So we're trying to make downtown look as good as we can. We're trying to give people reasons to come downtown to shop and dine and be entertained. And we are also trying to, really spur business development in downtown Alton by promoting the businesses that are already there and recruiting new businesses to come into the district.
I think 99% of the people watching this are going to be familiar with who you are and what you do, but I'm not sure everybody knows. Where did you grow up in the area? Where did you grow up? What was your childhood like?
Oh, yeah, I was born and raised in Alton.
Okay.
Went to St. Ambrose and Marquette, and went away for college, went to Illinois State. And then after college, I lived in Kansas City for a few years, and then lived in St. Louis for a few years. And then I started trying to look for homes and saw what you could get on that side of the river versus this side of the river. And I thought, hey, I'm going to go ahead and move back to my hometown. So.
What did you study at Illinois State?
Public relations.
Okay, makes sense. So.
Yeah.
And how did you come about the position of Executive Director for Main Street?
Well, at the time, I actually had a little music shop and art shop down on Broadway in Mineral Springs Mall, and the director of Alton Marketplace at the time came in and told us all about the organization, and thought it was really cool right from the start. And then not long after, the position opened up, and it was funny, my mom actually clipped it out of the paper and mailed it to me and said, "This is your new job. You have to apply for this job." So thanks, Mom, for finding my new career for me.
Well, it kind of shows how long ago it was. She mailed it to you. Nobody does that anymore. So, today it would have been a Facebook message or an email or something like that. So it's really been, and how long ago was that? When did you take the job?
12 and a half years.
12 and a half years.
Yeah.
Man, what an incredible 12 and a half years it's been. Just talk about some of the changes, more than changes. I think it's been a community transformation really in the last 12 and a half years.
Oh, it really definitely has been. I mean, really the first few years of my job, I almost had to stop people from laughing when I was explaining to them that downtown Alton could be awesome again.
Right.
It was a hard sell back then. It really was. I mean, we had 3rd Street.
A lot more businesses leaving than
for sure.
in.
Yeah. I mean, historically, having all the industry leave and everything, Alton was just kind of in a funk, really in a bad self-esteem place about what we'd lost. And we had not yet turned the corner to think about what we could become. We did have some pioneers, so, big, huge shout out to people like, Shea Maryland and Russ from Bossa Nova and Mac, who really saw the vision 30 to 40 years ago and purchased buildings and started to fix them up back then. But really, that was the nucleus, when I came on board, was 3rd Street, that whole area, and Broadway was more or less desolate. I mean, there were a shop here and there, a restaurant here and there, some people that have had some longevity there. But boy, turnover was high. Whole blocks were just completely abandoned and vacant. And now it is just really, Broadway is the new frontier and the new area for excitement. Things are really pushing down that side of the district. Main Street, people ask us all the time what our district is. A lot of the purists think of downtown just as the State Bell 3rd area. But our district goes from basically the entrance to the River Road all the way down to Fast Eddie's, and then all the way up to 9th Street. So the entire commercial district, that is basically what we take care of and try to infuse energy into.
And Alton's kind of an interesting city. Maybe it's not unique, but there's a lot of different names for different areas, at least going back traditionally. I mean, some people call it the Beltline, for example,
right.
versus, the Parkway. So it's kind of, I guess part of your job is probably trying to get rid of some of that confusion about what is downtown.
Oh, that's for sure. And people come looking for my office on Main Street in Alton all the time. And Main Street is obviously not near downtown whatsoever.
Right, yeah.
And it's funny that you mentioned that. I mean, it's, when we first incorporated, our name was Alton Marketplace, but the entire program is a national program called the Main Street America. And it was started by the National Trust for Historic Preservation, fundamentally to save old buildings. In the 70s and 80s, everybody fled to the suburbs and the shopping malls and the strip malls, and all of the historic downtowns all over the country started to fall into disrepair. So this is really at its heart, our program is about saving beautiful old architecture. And it was only really in the last 10 years or so when the whole Main Street versus Wall Street started to come into the lingo, that people now get automatically, when you say Main Street, that means mom and pop shops, independently owned businesses, and not chains and franchises, that sort of thing. So it's become less of a challenge to explain to people what we do, because people just kind of get the concept of Main Street more these days.
Yeah, and I think, with the advent of so many chain stores coming into small towns like ours, or obviously the impact of a company like Amazon, it's vitally important that consumers, I think, understand how important it is, if it's possible, to shop local. Talk a little bit about why that's so important to a community.
Oh, it's just absolutely vital. I mean, Walmarts have basically decimated small town commerce and locally owned businesses all over the country. I mean, we thankfully didn't fall into that trap in Alton, and that we just really have to recognize that small business is the absolute economic engine of the country. You think about one huge company and how many businesses or jobs, that brings to people and the community. But boy, when you look at all the small businesses en masse, I mean, that is the largest employer that our country has. That is the engine of our economy, and we've got to support them, because every time you send a shopper to Amazon instead of going down the street to your locally owned store, that literally takes all of those proceeds and takes it to the headquarters across the country. That's money that we're not able to use here to fix our roads, to help our schools, to fund our library, to do everything, all of the quality of life things, our parks, everything. That all is dependent on people shopping locally. And it's only when it's too late and we start to see the detrimental effects of not doing that people go, hang on, what's happening here? We've got to get out in front of this and make people realize it's not that much harder. Convenience is not the end all be all. If you do everything for the sake of convenience, you're not going to live in a very good quality of life type of community. So
absolutely. And I think I read the stat today that local businesses give on average twice as much to local charities and organizations compared to chains. So
look on every poster around town for all the community events that are going on.
See how many
the
chain
logos
stores you
at
see
the
on
bottom,
there. Not many.
Not many, if any. Yes, it is definitely. Those are the businesses that are sponsoring the Little League teams and that are helping put on, concerts and festivals for our community to enjoy. I mean, that is really, really important.
At what point did that kind of become apparent to you? Was that something from a young age? Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial family? But it's obviously something that seems like has been part of you for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I necessarily was brought up that way, but it was definitely when I became an adult and started to become more conscious, environmentally conscious, socially conscious. I mean, all of these things are, one big cycle. You've got to realize how it all relates to one another. And just the more you start paying attention and looking at these things and studying it, you really realize that shopping local is absolutely where it's at for an abundance of reasons.
I think one of the part of your role, I don't know if you've sat down and mapped out that this is part of it, but I've always said we have a beautiful area, lots of assets going for us. Probably our biggest issue that we have to deal with is kind of this inferiority complex that we struggle with. Industry left, so what do we do now? And kind of figuring out what our identity is. Is that something you feel like on a day-to-day basis that's part of your role?
Absolutely. I mean, it is funny, even the past 20 years, how we can see how everything has changed. I mean, before, you can absolutely tell that the Mississippi River was not seen as an asset for, the last number of generations. Everything in downtown is kind of built with its back facing the river. It's only now that everybody is starting to kind of about face and say, oh my gosh, look at this wonderful natural resource that we have right here,
Right.
for us to enjoy, and not to mention the commerce that goes on, the tourism that surrounds it, all of the ecotourism that's going on. I mean, we have an abundance of resources that we can tap into as far as that goes, and that is what makes us the envy of all these other towns around us. There's lots of great things going on in the surrounding communities, but absolutely none of them have the sweeping vista views that we have of the Mississippi River, the proximity, the marina,
Right.
all the recreation that can happen on the river. I mean, we are just poised for an absolute renaissance, and now people are just now catching on to, what we can become if we really apply ourselves to doing that.
I've been lucky enough to travel a lot of parts of the country, a few parts of the world, and I've always said to people, I said, you come back here, and still one of the most beautiful stretches of road that I've ever seen is the River Road.
Yep, absolutely.
So, what do you think some of the biggest challenges facing our community are from a business standpoint are?
Gosh, that's a great question. I mean, really, I think people are starting to realize that it's not about competition. It's about collaboration. So many more businesses these days are starting to co-op with one another. We have a bakery providing desserts for this restaurant that they don't want to hire their own pastry chef, for example. A lot of businesses are actually cohabitating in the same spaces. There's a lot of different arrangements that are going on downtown where people are, sharing space, sharing customers, cross-promoting one another, having each other's advertisements in their space so they can, there's just a real sense of community going on in downtown Alton right now. That is really the thing that we need to overcome, is that everybody's fighting for a piece of the pie. We all need to work together to grow the pie as a whole so that there's more resources to go around. Really, I think our holy grail is to get the St. Louis market to take a look at Alton and realize that we are really just 15-20 minute drive away. It is, you can see the arch from Alton on a clear day. We
Right,
need to
sure.
start
It's not an
preaching
ocean,
that.
it's a river.
It
Right.
absolutely is. Yeah, we've really been applying ourselves to reaching out to the St. Louis community. We actually gave a tour to about 30 people from the Urban Land Institute last week, and that is all the developers and contractors and architects, everybody of the who's who scene in real estate in St. Louis, and they all came over and we gave them a walking tour, a 3-hour walking tour of the entire downtown district to show them all the properties that were recently acquired, some of our success stories, and some of the businesses or buildings that still remain that are opportunities for development. So I think that, once these planned proposals for development really start rolling, all the gaps are going to get filled in pretty quick, and people are going to capitalize on this and pounce on it and say, oh my gosh, Alton really is an up-and-coming, awesome place to be.
A lot of really good things happening in the community, obviously. One of the best things, I think, to happen in the last few years was the small business revolution. You were instrumental in that. What was that experience like for you?
It was a whirlwind. To be quite honest, it was like a second full-time job that entire summer, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was just the shot in the arm that we really needed to, it just kind of punctuated the whole thing that a lot of us have been saying for a long time, that we really are on the upswing, and have somebody from the outside of our community come in and recognize you for that, and then, put us on Hulu. It was just, it's invaluable. It has been absolutely invaluable.
You mentioned your mom a little bit earlier in the interview. Who have some of the biggest influences in your life been?
Boy, biggest influences in my life. That's a good one. I had a lot of really instrumental board members that have helped me over the years. Most recently, I would definitely mention Debbie Edelman. She was on my board of directors for 6 years, board president for a number of those years. She's definitely one of those solid as a rock people that I can always turn to for advice, for sure. It's just been really interesting to see the evolution of who has stepped up to help lead our organization over the years. Now I have Sasha Bassett as our board president, and she has been for a couple of years. And she was born and raised in the area, but has lived all over the world, and recently came back a few years ago to lay down roots in Alton. And it was just interesting to see her perspective of Alton through those eyes, that have actually, been around the world and lived in multiple countries, and then come back and decide intentionally to settle back in Alton and make it the best she can. So she has really been also super instrumental in helping us, figure out where our path is going to forge in the future.
And along those lines, a new path. You guys have introduced a few new programs. I know a partnership program that's relatively new.
Yes, we just recently got our 501c3 charity status, which is pretty exciting for us. It's been a long time dream of ours. We've been a 501c6, if you're not familiar with the terms. It's basically what a business association or chamber of commerce was classified under. So we've been nonprofit this whole time, time, but we haven't been a charity. So we did the long, grueling application with the IRS. It was hundreds of pages, hundreds of hours of work.
Oh,
and
fun.
we finally got our 501c3 designation, which means that all of the donations given by just any general member of the public are now tax deductible. And we have had people a number of times over the years say, I want to support you guys above and beyond just buying a ticket to the chili cook-off and your random fundraisers that you put on and things.
Right.
So we're really encouraging everyone who likes what we're doing and wants us to be able to do more of it and higher quality to pitch in and become a sustaining member. We have all kinds of levels with different perks and things like that, including tickets to the chili cook-off if you become a member. So
we signed up, so we're Big Z's a partner. I know another project, not a new one, but something that's near and dear to your heart is the farmers market.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that has just literally exploded over the past 10 years. When I first came on board, it was in that little parking lot right there between Cat Daddy's and Harris's Tavern, and 10 to 12 vendors every week.
Right.
And now we push sometimes 80 or 90 vendors on a Saturday morning. So it has just grown by leaps and bounds. We're really, really dedicated to, promoting the local food economy here in Alton. Really encouraging, chefs to work with local farmers, just really encouraging everyone to meet their farmer, know where their food comes from. And it has been just a real joy to watch that culture blossom in Alton.
If you haven't been to one, you should definitely go and check one out. If somebody wants to learn more about the organization, about Main Street, where can they go?
Our website is downtownalton.com, and we have an events page that will tell you all the details on there. We have a volunteer application, so if any of the things that I mentioned sparked an interest, you can definitely go and click all the boxes for the things that you're interested in, and then when that rolls around in the calendar, we'll contact you to see how you can pitch in and help. We are always looking for volunteers.
Do you ever accidentally call it Marketplace anymore?
I do, every once in a while.
I do too, sorry. So, Sarah, thanks for all you do for the community, and thanks a lot for coming on Business Over a Brew. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. This was fun.
Thanks for watching the Business Over a Brew podcast. For more video of me drinking free beer with some of the Riverbend's most interesting and influential business leaders, visit AltonDailyNews.com and click on the podcast page. To enjoy a great meal with great food, great service, and great atmosphere, visit Great Rivers Tap and Grill inside the Best Western Premier in Alton. Check out some of their new menu items at GreatRiversTapandGrill.com.